the service worthwhile. Now, what you have in front of you are the group of strategies that we use exclusively for service marketing. These are called the media strategies for targeting users, or the media strategies for targeting non-users, right? So we have two different type of people when you talk about service marketing. Those people who are using your services, or those people who are not using your services. Those who are not using your services, we call them non-users, and those who are using your services, they would be called the users. So if I ask you this question, those people who are not using your strategy, how are you going to make them your customers? How are you going to convert the non-users to users? So how are you going to convert the potential customers into the actual customers? Obviously, you are going to use, from the communication perspective, you are going to use different kind of communication strategies that can actually help you out in achieving this objective. So here in front of you are the different kind of pet strategies that we have already discussed. For example, you are going to use the media advertising, like television media, electronic media, or broadcast media. Within the electronic media, you have radio, you have sorry, advertising, television or radio, different kind of tools and techniques we talk about. They comes under the electronic media or the broadcast media. And then you have different kind of out of home media, which comes under the non-personal form of communication. Then you have public relationships and sponsorships. So television, radio, social media, out of home media, SMS advertising, mobile advertising, WhatsApp advertising, social media advertising. All of these techniques, they're actually used for targeting the non-user. But once these people becomes your users, once your advertising strategy, once your communication strategy has been effective, what you're going to do is you are going to make them your customer on permanent basis. You are going to communicate them with daily basis. For example, let me start with a simple case study. Before you were not the students of ComSats, we advertise on television, sorry, not television, but we advertise on newspaper, and we advertise through social media. You came across our university's promotional campaigns through social medias, or newspaper, or different kind of posts that you have seen on our Facebook pages. At that time you were not our users, but after you actually thought that ComSat is a suitable place to study, what you did, you applied for the admission, then you got the admission, and after all those things, what now is you are our customer, you are still our customer. Now we have to come up with strategies that can actually make you a satisfied customer for a long time, because you are now in a communication zone with us on regular basis. You are meeting teachers on a regular basis, you are meeting your administration staff on regular basis. So our communication strategy with you guys, it has not ended. This is the important thing you need to understand, that when it comes to manufacturing, when it comes to goods, you may not be into some sort of a continuous contact with the company. You saw a commercial, you buy a product, and that's the end. The next time you want to use that product, you do not have to watch that commercial again. You just have to go to the store and you have to buy that product. But once you talk about the services, you and us, we need to have some sort of a regular communication, because we are inseparable. As I discussed with you in the early course, in the early chapters, that this inseparability, intangibility, perishability is not going to go away. It's still going to be there on regular basis. So once you have become our customer, we are not going to end our communication strategy. We are still going to develop communication plan in order to serve you better. That's why we make you people evaluate our faculty members on every end of the semester and every semester, because we just want to improve our communication and targeting strategy. So you need to understand this thing, that once your potential customer, they become your actual customer, your communication strategy is not going to end. It still needs development. It still needs some sort of a proactive measure. It still needs innovation in your communication design and strategies. So that is the important thing to understand here. So once you talk about targeting the users of the service, you need to understand a very important premise that I'm going to mention here, that there are three types of service staffs that we use within every organization. We have type 1 service staff, we have type 2 service staff, we have type 3 service staff. And how are you going to differentiate? You need to look at the basic idea at that what makes a service staff a type 1 staff. For example, a service staff who are required to deal with customer quickly and effectively in once only transaction based encounters where large number of customers are present. For example, you talk about when they talk about frontline personnel at a fast food restaurant, you go to a fast food restaurant, you give them an order first time, you are not involved with them on regular basis, they are not to be considered as specialists, you don't need a lot of information. But once you talk about an interaction with the service staff that you found in university, for example, once you talk about your coordinators, those people who guide you on daily basis, they are not to be considered at type 1 staff, because with them you have interactions on daily basis. So for example, if you talk about type 2 staff, you need to understand the service staff who deal with the numerous often repeat customers in restricted interactions or somewhat longer duration. So if you take Comm stats into consideration, you will realize that all the different kind of staffs are here in present in CommSat. You have type 1 staff as well. For example, you talk about your security guards, right, or your horticulture staff or your cleaning staff. They might come into type 1 service staff because they do not have these kind of personal or different kind of informative sessions with you. They do not actually greet you on daily basis, you just pass them by. But once you talk about your coordinators, like you talk about Sadaf or different kind of coordination staff that you are having in CommSat, who actually deal with you on daily basis, with whom you might need an interaction on daily basis. These kind of people, they may be dealing with you on daily basis, and you require more information, you require more kind of professionalism with them. Or you talk about a fine dining establishment, or you talk about a waiting staff person, they require more communication still. You require more interaction with them, and that's why they are not to be considered as a type 1 service staff. They are considered type 2 service staff. So how are you going to differentiate type 1, type 2 from the third type of service staff, that is called the type 3 service staff? For example, if you talk about your faculty members, if you talk about your teachers, you talk about your head of the departments, these people, they might come in type 3 service staff. Why? Because they require high communication skills because of their extended and complex interactions with you people. You require daily basis, hourly basis interaction. You need them to be professionals. They need to have high communication skills. One thing, but you need to understand here, that a single service organization, they can have all these three service staffs, and it is still a possibility that a single service staff can only have a single type 1 service staff. So this is your next question. I'm posting it right now, and I'm going to expect that you people should have some sort of a suitable answer with you in our next class. And you should keep in mind that these kind of questions, they can also pop up in your final examination. The question is, can a single organization can have all these three type of service staffs, or can a single organization can have only one type of service staff? And even if they have one type of service staff, would it be type 1, type 2, or type 3? So you need to be prepared for this question once we will meet next time in the class. So I hope. Now what you have here in front of you are the special challenges that is posed by the service communication strategy of any service organization. For example, if you remember our previous lectures in semester 4, I gave you an idea of service profit chain, and there we discussed one thing, that before you go for external marketing, you have to go through internal marketing. Internal marketing was that you have to make sure that your employees, they understand your service. You have to sell your service to your employees first, because they are the one who are actually going to interact with the customer, and they are the one who are going to be engaged in the external marketing. So basically, advertising to the employee would be the first step of any service marketing plan. You need to understand that they are the one who are going to communicate your service. They are the one who are going to sell your service, and that is basically the challenge number 2 here in front of you. The sometime your employee, they have to be the seller, and they also have to be the provider of that service. For example, if you talk about a 5-star hotel, you need to understand that those people who are engaged in sales, about them we have already discussed in chapter when we were discussing service processes, that how selling people and operation people, they interfere with each other, or how they can create opportunities or issues for each other. But at that example, one thing you must have understood, that selling and operation, they were two different part of the world. And those people who are involved in the selling process, they may not be involved in the operations as well. They may not be the provider of that service again. But in certain organizations, in certain service environment, there can be a possibility when a seller of that service, it can also be the provider of that service. And if they are also the provider of that service, that is also going to create a big challenge, because you have to make sure that the commitments that you are placing in the mind of the customer, these commitments have to be met. and you should not overcommit and you should not undercommit, and you should create a right level of expectation which should not be that much high and that much low as well. So this is another question I'm going to pose here, guys. You need to come up with an example in order to explain me that is there any organization and is there any service environment where the seller of that service is also the provider of that service. For example, if you talk about CommSats, we in their faculty members, we are just the provider of that service. We are not the seller of that service, but we can be the seller of that service. So I'm just giving you a different guideline so that you can come up with an idea, come up with an example of your own, where you can understand that how a service seller can also be the service provider. So these are the two different challenges that you need to understand whilst you're developing a service communication strategy, that you have to sell your service to the employees before you sell your service to the customer. You can engage with them in external marketing, you can advertise your customers, but you need to go through internal marketing as well. And then you have specific guidelines, and they're very easy to understand. For example, develop a word of mouth communication network, word of mouth communication rules when it comes to services. And this is another question that I want to ask here, that why mass marketing is considered to be least effective in service marketing, why word of mouth communication is more preferable, and how service marketers they create word of mouth communication programs. How service marketers they create word of mouth communication programs. If you're not going to give me these answers, I'm going to collect all these questions and I'm going to give you in the final assignment. So you should better be have some questions. You should better be having some answers, so that you can avoid these type of assignments coming your way. And then you can promise what is possible. Do not overcommit. Try to establish a balance, a form of commitment. Do not go overboard in creating something that is not able to achieve. Do not advertise your university like a place of dreams where rainbows coming out of you. So once students they come to the university, they feel more disheartened what kind of advertisement was placed, and that cannot not actually be achieved by physically by you people. That is the thing you need to understand here. So tangibilizing the intangible is another important dimension. We have already discussed this thing before, and I gave you a very thorough explanation about tangibilizing the intangible, how you're going to how you're going to achieve different kind of symbols, how are you going to achieve different kind of physical ambience in order to tangibilize the intangible, because you need to make sure that you objectify the subjective evaluation. So by doing so, you need to incorporate your physical evidence. You need to use different kind of symbols or ambience in order to make sure the customer they can understand the image of organization. So improving image can also be done if you try to tangibilize the intangibles, and you need to incorporate your important working relationship with the customer, because once you make people understand that you are here to deal with the customer, you are here to help the customer, you are here to provide them guidelines, you treat them like your family, you treat them like your partner. So that kind of relationship, if this is advertised in your communication strategy, in your communication plan, it's going to create wonders for any organization. And another important dimension of service communication strategy that you must keep this in mind, that you need to combine. If you remember the previous slide, it was saying you need to tangibilize the intangible, and sometimes you have to intangibilize the tangible as well, because you need to understand that the more tangible your product is, you need more intangible image to promote it. The more intangible your product is, the more tangible elements you need to incorporate in order to market your product. So this a basic idea of communication strategy that can only be helpful for you, and this is how you're going to do it. For example, if you look in front of you at this chart, this graph, you understand that if you want to advertise the perfume, you need to use more intangible elements. So all over the world, I'm not talking about in Pakistan, because we may never have come across any prominent advertising strategy in which communication strategy was developed around any perfume. We hardly have bigger brands of perfume. We only use imported international perfume. But if you look at Google, if you use YouTube, you will realize that they spend a lot of money in creating intangible images, celebrity endorsement, different kind of media campaigns, event marketing, or different kind of publishing activities or brochure activities or printing advertising in magazine, high-tech magazines or social media. They spend a lot of money on promoting these kind of perfumes because they understand this thing that is a highly tangible product and it does not require any kind of additional service elements. What you do is you use different kind of intangibility. But if you talk about insurance, which is highly intangible, you need to use different kind of tangible element. You different kind of brochures, or your building, your cards, your employees appearances, your badges, different kind of on different kind of physical objects that you give to your customer, like pens or stationery. There's a special word that we use, skip my mind. But you need to provide them different kind of tangible elements in order to make sure that your service is being tangibilized. So what this chart actually does, this graph actually does, it is actually tangibilizing the intangibles or intangibilizing the tangibles. So the more tangible your product is, the more intangible image is required. The more intangible your product is, the more tangible evidence is required. So basically, if you are developing your marketing plan, if you're developing your plan for your business, you need to understand that what kind of or to what level the intangibility or tangibility is required. For example, if you talk about in the middle where tangibility and intangibility both are required, so you are going to create a balanced approach. You're also going to achieve tangible elements, but you're also going to achieve the intangible uh, elements, and then reduce the consumer fears about the variation in the performance, because when it comes to services, the trepidation is very much higher, the epistemic ambivalence is very much higher. So these ambivalences, these trepidations, they can only be reduced if you are going to make sure that the consumer, they understand your service. If your advertising and communication strategy, it incorporates all the important variables that are required by the consumer to make the right decision. So that actually is an important determinant here. And then determine and focus on relevant service quality dimensions. So if you are going to create a positioning, you need to understand what kind of quality dimensions they matter to the customer. For example, if you talk about Comm University, on which quality dimension you think should be Comm should be marketed to the students, on which quality relevant dimensions CommSats should position its service. So this is an important question, that not all the variables, not all the dimensions, they're equally important for all the customer. There can be differentiations, there can be different kind of elements. They may be suitable for an airline, but they may not be suitable for an education sector, or they may not be suitable for hospitality industry, may not be suitable for hospitals or a courier service. So you need to understand, you need to remember this thing, that they determine and focus on relevant service quality dimension. Differentiate the service product via the service delivery process. I cannot overemphasize it more than this. We have already covered an entire chapter on service process. I told you that service is basically the service process. Services are differentiated on the basis of the process. Service innovation is the most important dimension on which a service is evaluated, and service is nothing but a combination of different service processes. If they are innovated, they can create a lot of differences. And then you have make the service more easily understood. Service itself should be self-explanatory, and obviously if you do not have any tangible evidence, it creates difficulty for the people to understand your service. For example, if you talk about life insurance corporation or financial plan of the bank, they create a lot of problems for the customer, because most of the time people, they are not being able to understand their financial implications they may be falling into. Establish regular communication with the clients, a letter of the welcome to the new client, handwritten personalized message, create more impact than newsletter. I don't need to overemphasize, it's very self-explanatory. Please, I already told you this thing, that if I'm just browsing through the slides and sometime I say that it's self-explanatory, I assume it is self-explanatory because it looks like that you people are now in the 5th semester, you have already gone through 2 courses of marketing, and you are still going through a course of specialization, and it is assumed that you people already understand this thing and many of the thing. But yes, I know that there can be certain things which may not be assumed to be self-explanatory, but that does not mean that I have to emphasize on each and every point here in the lectures. What is the use of us meeting us what is the use of us meeting for 1.5 hours every week if we do not have anything to discuss? Because most of the time what I have seen is, if I ask you any question, you don't ask any question. If I say if you have any question, you don't ask any question, means that everything is self-explanatory, means that because if you're not asking me anything, I'm assuming that you understand everything. So, but yes, there can be certain things that I believe there can be certain assumptions, but I'm giving you an open option. You can ask me any questions you want about anything from anywhere. You have my WhatsApp number. You have we meet on weekly basis for 1.5 hours. I am not assuming, I'm not going to ridicule everybody or anybody for that matter that you are asking me any question. You are welcome to ask any question you want. You can ask me anything you want. Just please make sure that you are paying attention. Make sure that you go through certain literature. You need to start working. Do not assume that I'm going to explain you everything so that you should not, go through the book. It's not going to happen like that. You need to work hard. If you want my participation on that, you're most welcome anytime, anywhere, in any form possible, right? One thing and important, which is very much important, is that the information of the service staff is very much vital when you talk about, service marketing. And why do you think that informed office staff is vital in service? Yes, it is also vital in goods, but when it comes to services, its important becomes double. And why is that? Because we do not have anything tangible to offer to the customer. We do not have shoes, we do not have toothpaste or a car, because once the people they come to buy those tangible products, they can look at them by themselves, they can actually understand the basic fabric, they can understand the basic technology, they can touch them, feel them, smell them, use them, they can sample the fit. But when it comes to services, you don't have those kind of luxuries. So information is the key element. If you are calling your university for some kind of issue and they do not have the information, tell me what is the worth of having that kind of university. If you are calling an airline to know about the departure or arrival dates or how much late that flight is going to be, and if they do not have that kind of information, what kind of airline service are they running? If you go to a hospital regarding your disease and the doctor is not going to able to identify, or the service staff, they do not have any information, when is the doctor going to arrive and how much time it will take and how much money is going to cost, what kind of service staff are they running? So this is the important thing that I'm going to understand is the staff is in constant direct contact with the clients. Failure to communicate effectively with the firm staff is readily apparent and quickly erase all the communication efforts to project a quality program. It doesn't matter how much money you spend on your quality programs, your communication strategy. If your service staff is useless, if they do not have the information, they do not have the right attitude, it's it's not going to help you out. So that was it, guys. That was all from the communication perspective. I hope you understood. Please go through the slide. Please try to understand every aspect I've discussed. Please go through the book and read all the things and come to me if you do not understand. We'll see you in the next class. Take care. Allah Hafiz.